Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States of America. Good morning to the entire world. Getting to you via the magic of El Internet, that magical communication system created by whom again? You, we the people. We the people, now controlled by the billionaire class. Anyway, folks, as we told you yesterday, we had a big computer crash, hard drive gone. Well, spent all night, got it back up and running. Let's make sure and let's see if all works fine. Anyway, without further ado, let's move it on to the geniuses in the studio, El Señor Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Beba.
Well, it sounds like the tin cans and string have held up for Tuesday, the 4th of February, 2025. Good morning, Egberto. It is going to be another fine day here in Houston, Texas, and the world, thanks to the ARPANET, formerly known as the Internet, or the Internet, formerly known as the ARPANET. And Jack, did you contact Elon Musk and tell him that you want our shares back?
Yes, I did.
What did he say?
He said, hell no, he's keeping them all for himself.
He said, oh, no, I'm going to give you some shares of Tesla Motors. Like, no.
Pass.
Pass. How about a couple of new Teslas?
Pass.
Yeah, I don't feel like burning to death. Okay, you got some wisdom here, about a half a page. And so let's go ahead and get to it because we're feeling unwise this morning.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
Good morning, my brother. I'm feeling great. Actually, I'm super happy that the computer system seemed to be okay. Go ahead, my brother.
Good deal. Okay, this is on your second topic. Main Street media speaketh with corporate tongue. The First Amendment has really taken a beating since Reagan deregulated media ownership. Excuse me. The owners have an agenda that doesn't include free speech or the truth. These men are building empire, and empire requires the general public to be misinformed or propagandized. So Bernie's right, as he most often is, to call for independent media that reports the truth without fear of Trump's retribution.
Well,
without
they need to,
fear.
Yeah, they need to revise the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which opened up the Pandora's box of ownership. So the big corporations bought up every radio station, every TV station they could find, and started pre-programming everything. And it's not the company's view to do this. And we can't be telling them that because, it's not the company's view to do this. Start rolling back ownership limits. Roll it back to 1971. You were only allowed to own 7 radio stations, 7 AMs, 7 FMs, and that was it. So that's one of the biggest problems we have today with radio stations. Why does a company own 5, 6 FM radio stations in the same market? The bandwidth is not that big. So it's limited bandwidth, limited dial positions. So one corporation should not own 3 to 4 FMs in the same market.
All about control.
That would be a good start. Roll back the ownership caps.
I agree wholeheartedly, Señor Howard. I agree wholeheartedly, Jack Van Bever. Anyway, folks, don't forget, this is a call-in show, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738, extension number 2. We have a lot to cover today. The title of the show today is, as I get to the page, Ali Velshi schools MAGA on tariffs. Sanders urges independent press to report without fear. And, before the show, I get here into the studio early and I'm reading, and I found an article about a church in North Carolina that touched me. So I'm going to get there in a little bit. But beforehand, I just want to talk a little bit about what occurred with Canada and and Mexico, no, that's Mexico, yesterday. Donald Trump, I was on Substack and somebody said, oh, yeah, Donald Trump got them. You see, Donald Trump won. Actually, I am trying to figure out what the hell Donald Trump was doing with this tariff thing if he knew that it wasn't going to happen, because the business leaders were going to tell him, hey, you're messing with my money and you don't mess with the businessman's money. And that's what the tariffs were going to do. But anyhow, Donald Trump got nothing. The 10,000 troops that they talk about on the border, troops are fungible. And, from Mexico, that is. And it's something that Biden and the former president of Mexico, AMLO, talked about we're going to do anyhow. And it seemed to me like the fact that Mexico got Donald Trump to speak about guns and doing something about guns coming across the border, did she really get a better piece of the PR battle, even though none of it really makes a difference to what's going on? And then with Canada doesn't really, the truth is, Trump teases about Canada being the 51st state and all of that. Canada is its own country, etc. But when you go to Canada, you don't feel all that much different than when you're in America. I remember we used to drive out from Seattle into Vancouver, British Columbia. And the only thing I could say is that it was like going into a beautiful area, going into a clean place. But I felt like I was in, America. Well, I was in America, just a little bit further northern part of America. So I'd never understood what the fight was with Canada, who very little fentanyl comes over the border, very few undocumented workers, relatively that is, come over the border. Of course, there are really a lot of undocumented workers coming over, but it's the kind that America doesn't have a lot of problems with. There are a lot of Canadians that just cross and stay with their girlfriends and whatever, and nobody thinks twice about it. We all know about that. But Trump got nothing. Trump got nothing for this tariff thing. I don't know what that was all about. Do you know? Have you figured that out, Howard or Jack, why he did this?
Oh, just to show that he's got some cojones and some chutzpah, which he really doesn't have. It's just popping off. Basically what he's doing, he's just popping off. I have the power to do this and you can quake because I'm going to threaten you with this stuff. Nonsense.
Yeah.
They pushed back on him. He folded.
Yes.
That's basically what happened is they said, okay, Canada and Mexico, we two get together and we're going to fix this situation, and Trump folds. He's a bully.
Yeah.
He's just a big old bag of air that just, was barking at. He's like the lazy fat dog underneath the port when a car passes by. What does he do when the car stops and starts backing up? Oh my God, what's happening? What, wait a minute, hold on. That's exactly what happened. He folded.
Yeah, he did. And then he goes to Panama. Well, not he goes to Panama. Marco Rubio goes to Panama to threaten Panama. And he meets with Molina, the president of Panama, and tells her, well, something has to change with China and the ports in Panama, where China I think we have 6 major ports in Panama, and China is managing 2 of them, just like we have Spain managing used to be managing some of the freeways here in the tollways here in Texas, Well, China is managing a couple of ports in Panama. I guess they made some kind of a deal and bribe with some of the government officials because, again, there are a lot of bribes that occur in Panama. There's no doubt about that. But there are a lot of bribes that go on here, Jamaica and everywhere else, right? But so he goes down there, Pampas or whatever. And the Panamanian president tells him, no matter what happens, no matter what, the canal belongs to Panama, and we are standing by our sovereignty of the canal. In other words, yeah, we can talk about China and the deal that we have with China if you want, but this is how things are going to stay. There's a problem, however, in Panama, and I don't know if any Panamanians are listening to me right now, but I'm about to do a video in Panama to send in the whole social media space in Panama, because I'm very disappointed in certain groups in Panama that are fed up with the corruption that's going on in the Panamanian government with the Panama Canal, and their answer. Many Panamanians' answers, and I called a reporter over the weekend. Some of the things that they're saying is, well, to hell with it. Let the Americans come in and take the canal, because look at what they're doing with it, and it's not benefiting a lot of us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, that's not true. It is true that there's a lot of corruption, but the canal is a huge benefit to the entire Panama's financial infrastructure, even with all the thievery, just like with all the thievery we have in the United States, in our Congress and with business and Musk and all these guys ripping the government off, ripping our tax dollars off. I don't think any of us would say, hey, Russia, come and invade and take this away because these Congress people are corrupt. We would never say that. Well, there is a sect in Panama that's actually are so fed up with the corruption that they're saying, oh yeah, America, come take the canal, as if taking the canal would mean no corruption. It just means you would be changing who the corruption is coming from. After all, when America had that 5 miles on either side of the canal, the Panamanians living in the canal zone, of which I was one of them living in the canal zone because my father worked for the canal, for the fire department in the canal, when they had the huge riots in I think it was 64, January 9th, 64, that actually was the cause of the Panama Canal Treaty. My father was actually manning the hoses that were trying to keep other Panamanians from invading the canal zone to take back sovereignty. So, I mean, it's a very complicated story, but all of us who lived on the canal zones that were Panamanians, we didn't quite know it then, but we were living in a state of apartheid in Panama, in a country that, we called our own, living in apartheid under the American government in the canal zone. So it really irks me when I hear a few Panamanians in Panama saying things are so bad, hey, America, just come take the darn canal. It is amazing. So if there is a Panamanian listening to the program right now, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Anyway, the subject, Ali Velshi schools MAGA on tariffs. To my beautiful MAGA listeners who have believed everything Donald Trump's told you about these tariffs being paid by foreign governments or etc., I hope this piece will work for you. I hope this piece will enlighten you. So let's go ahead and do that now, and then we'll take it on the other side. As you know, today tariffs were supposed to begin, and it turned out that Mexico came back real strong with Donald Trump. And because he knows he can't mess around with Sheinbaum, he knew that he had to come through somehow. So he got a face saver. She's going to put 10,000 troops on our several thousand-mile long border. And in exchange to save face for her, he has to control guns going into Mexico. In other words, nothing changed. This was as far as, and then there's a 30-day pause. This guy got so much flack because he lied to the American people about tariffs. I actually think he really doesn't understand how tariffs work. That is how inept I think the man really is. And when he's talking about it's a negotiation scheme, What negotiations? Nothing really came out of these negotiations of any real substantive nature. But I want our MAGA brothers and sisters to learn something about tariffs, how they work. And I want them to see it from somebody who understands it well and is very good at bringing it all together. Ali Velshi, take it away.
Starting today, February 1st, imported goods from both Canada and Mexico will incur a 25% tariff, and imports from China will get hit with a 10% tariff. According to New York Times analysis, these tariffs could affect 40% of all U.S. imports, including everything from avocados to lumber to car parts to oil. Now, as I said, Mexico, Canada, and China are our biggest trading partners. The United States imports roughly $1.3 trillion worth of goods and materials from those three countries alone. Trump and his new press secretary have cited the flow of both migrants and drugs like fentanyl as the main reasons for imposing these tariffs, and Trump has claimed that the tariffs will raise trillions of dollars from foreign governments. But most economists agree that's not how this works. So let's dig into it. These tariffs are essentially a tax levied on imported goods, meaning that the U.S. companies which seek to buy goods from other countries must pay that additional tax or tariff. That fee is not paid by the nation that sends the goods, but by the American importer. And that increased cost is almost always passed on to American consumers to offset the company's new higher expense. For a moment, let's focus on the trade that occurs between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The North American trading bloc is the largest trading bloc in the world. The trading relationships we have with Mexico and Canada, respectively, are larger than any trade agreements we have anywhere else in the world. And because our North American bloc has enjoyed more than 30 years of free trade agreements, from the Auto Pact with Canada to the Free Trade Agreement with Canada to the North American Free Trade Agreement, which included the United States and Mexico, to the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, today, our three economies are deeply and intricately intertwined. In 2023, the United States imported roughly $475 billion worth of goods from Canada. Our top import from Canada is, far and away, crude oil. After that, top categories include automobiles and car parts, machinery like nuclear reactors, and materials like plastics, wood, metals, and a lot of minerals. The same year, the United States exported roughly $350 billion worth of goods to Canada, including automobiles and car parts, machinery, electronics, oil and gas products, and plastics. So we buy more from Canada than we sell. Now, to Mexico. In 2023, we imported roughly $418 billion worth of goods, a little less than we buy from Canada. Top imports from Mexico include automobiles and their parts, computers, crude oil, and fruits and vegetables. Notably, half of America's imported fruit and more than 2/3 of our imported vegetables come from Mexico. Mexico is also the #1 supplier of medical supplies and devices for U.S. hospitals and doctors' offices. Now, in that same year, 2023, the United States exported roughly $320 billion worth of goods to Mexico, including electronic equipment, machinery, automobiles and parts, oil and gas products, and plastics, similar to Canada. And similarly, we sell Mexico less than we buy from them. Most American cars contain parts that are made in Mexico and Canada. And in the process of manufacturing, many American car parts cross continental borders multiple times. Experts estimate that, barring exceptions, car prices will increase by thousands of dollars. Many products like cars, electronics, denim, blue jeans, home goods, processed foods, they cross back and forth between all three North American countries as they're processed from raw materials to parts to a finished product at the point of sale. The decades of free trade between us and our neighbors have allowed that process and that relationship to develop. The United States imports roughly 70% of its crude oil from Canada and Mexico. And though Trump has indicated that there may be a 10% tariff on petroleum products instead of the 25% tariff being applied to the other sectors, the Council on Foreign Relations suggests that American consumers can expect to see gas prices rise at least 50 cents per gallon. In response to these new tariffs, both Canada and Mexico have announced plans to implement retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, but the details on those are still to come. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that Canada will respond, quote, forcefully but reasonably. And Canada's former finance minister suggested targeted tariffs of their own in order to exert political pressure. Her suggestion, published as an op-ed in the Financial Times, suggested targeted tariffs on Tesla products and products from Republican-led states. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has also indicated that she is prepared to impose retaliatory tariffs, but hasn't provided details about what they might be. As our trade partners determine their responses to these new tariffs, Trump's new trade plan, now in effect today, has the potential to reshape decades of complex, hard-won international trade deals on which we've all come to rely.
I hope you understood what he's talking about. Now, there are two reasons, and I mentioned this when I spoke to Capital guy, Marlon Weems, over the weekend when we had a live Substack. Donald Trump figured two things. If he threw the tariffs on, there's a good possibility that what the budget numbers would show is some increase in revenue, with the expectation that that can be used to offset what he needs to offset to get a tax cut using reconciliation. But again, what he doesn't realize is that the economic damage is likely going to be much worse than the benefits he gets from his clones in accepting a tax cut. So I think he's probably going to want to back off somewhat now, because again, like I said, like everybody has told him, like we have told MAGA and those who want to believe his fallacies, you pay for the tariffs, and that money ultimately ends up in the hands of the billionaires. Aren't you tired of being screwed? And I really mean that. Aren't you tired of being screwed? I mean, let me give you another, how these guys use the poor, the lower middle classes, MAGA, to promote their stuff. You remember how they constantly spoke about no tax on tips, no tax on tips. And everybody ran with that, right? He goes to Nevada and he goes to these places where there are a lot of tip workers, and that is your selling point to get a certain percentage of these people, supporting him, because there's no tax on tip. So immediately thereafter, Kamala Harris had to match that. So she comes out and she has her no tax on tips deal, but she goes ahead and positions it exactly the way you want to position something like that. It only is for service workers. You make a certain amount, etc. But that's not what Trump did. Trump just said no tax on tips. And you listen to MAGA or other folks, and they'll be like, look, he's going to lower the taxes, and you're lying when you say he's not going to lower the taxes on the poor and the middle class, because who are tip workers, etc., etc., etc. And the first thing I said is, there you are, gullible again. Because you're right. Donald Trump said no tax on tips. But most of the people we consider tip workers make a little bit of money. And they weren't paying income taxes anyway. So no tax on tips for them meant nothing. It's a marketing gimmick. But here is where the real thing comes in. And this is where he makes suckers out of MAGA, for which everybody pays. If I am a stockbroker, if I am a doctor, if I am a lawyer, if I am any wealthy person, I can say, okay, this service that I'm doing for you is going to cost you $1,000 if you give me a tip for $10,000. And given that would be registered as a tip for $10,000, wow, it's tax-free. no Social Security tax, no income tax, no Medicare tax. It's tax free. So it was just another potential giveaway to the wealthy. Because again, it's all in the laws. And as you know, there are people who goes ahead. The rich has people who go ahead, read the law literally, and then they go ahead and implement their suggestions for their people on what to do. And if you say, well, then Congress can correct it the next year after, try to see how they actually correct a law like that later on. It's usually very difficult to pass these types of laws. So again, folks, you have to understand how these people work. It's never for you, the middle class. It is never for you, the poor. It is always for the people who pay the bribes to the Congress people. So for my Panamanian listeners, you see those crooked diputados that you have in our Congress in Panama? It's the same thing over here. It's the same thing in UK. It's the same thing in Germany. It's the same thing in Brazil. What has to happen is we have to have a media that is calling these things out, and the people that is willing to stand up, because it's more of us than them. I repeat, it's more of us than them. But we have to first acknowledge our work. Then that's the piece that I'm doing in Spanish to send to those different to the Latino TikTok and Instagram, to my Panamanian compatriots. And that is, let me tell you something. It's not about having a plutocrat stand up or stand against another plutocrat. You're just exchanging plutocrats. It's about the people. It's about the masses saying no more. It's about the masses saying, as Roberto Mano de Piedra Duran, who used to be our champion in Panama, would say, as he said to Leonard when they were fighting in the ring, no más, no más, no more. It is time for us to tell the plutocrats, the Elon Musks, and all these guys who have made their monies on our backs, no más, no more. And again, like I mentioned, it takes the media, but the media right now is in trouble, as Bernie Sanders has spoken about. Sanders urges independent press. First of all, folks, don't forget the telephone number 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. I am taking calls now. If you would like to call, don't wait till the end of the program where I have to shoo you off rather quickly to get to the next call, to the next call, the next call. If you're going to call, please call now. Sanders urges independent press that reports the truth without fear of Trump retribution. If major media outlets succumb to intimidation from the Trump administration, the First Amendment is in serious danger. And let me tell you, they have already started doing that. The mainstream media is already succumbing to Donald Trump and the billionaires. Independent U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont on Monday took aim at both President Donald Trump's attempt at suing the media into submission and news outlets' willingness to settle such cases and self-censor as incredibly dangerous precedents. In the video he posted on social media, Sanders highlighted that CBS News parent company Paramount is in talks with Trump's lawyers to possibly settle a $10 billion lawsuit filed by the president just days before the 2024 election, accusing 60 Minutes of deceptively editing an interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee. I mean, that they are even talking about negotiating this. Go to court. Donald Trump could not possibly win that lawsuit. Go to court. but they're seeking favor. That's what they are. They're seeking favor. They want to make sure they can stay in the White House room. They want to make sure that they have access to the Pentagon. So they're going to try to settle, pay off Donald Trump, the thug, the thief, the abuser of women. Sanders also noted how ABC News agreed last year to pay a $15 million settlement that included a letter of regret after a veteran anchor and political commentator, George Stephanopoulos, said Trump had been found liable for rape of writer E. Jean Carroll. Well, that's what the judge said. The judge said any other time this will be called rape. The problem, Stephanopoulos just said liable for rape instead of judge said he would be liable for rape. Wow. And that is worth $15 million to Donald Trump. After Donald Trump lies on people day in and day out, the former and the current president of the United States lies on people. Maybe every lie that he tells Americans, we should file suit on. When he lied about tariffs, we should sue him. When he lied about the university he had, we should sue him. Oh, we did sue him, and we won $25 million. Okay, so at least we won that one. When he stole from his charity, we should sue him. Oops, we did sue him for the charity, and he had to give back several $1 million. Okay. Maybe that's why he's suing, because he lies so much and he's such a thief, he's been sued that many times. Steve, come on in.
Hey, morning, brother Egberto.
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
I always love your show. I'm kind of wondering today if you're missing like a little bit of the big picture, though. Of course, it's great stuff on tariffs, but unless I'm, was dreaming the wrong dream, isn't the big comet of Musk coming directly towards the United States? Didn't they just hand him over the keys to the Treasury with like six of his cronies, 18 to 24 years old, and then which is also the State Department, which has all our secrets. So you've got trillions of dollars that he has right now, and all the data. Is that the true case that we're essentially under a potential coup right now from a guy non-elected from South Africa and a potential Hitler dude?
Something? I would have to give you kudos for bringing that up. Let me tell you the problem with me and that story is I don't quite understand it yet. A few people, I read a few things about what he's doing, and here's what I don't understand, Steve, and I have to learn about this. He's in the Treasury and supposedly have control of of the accounts, all the government accounts. I don't know what the command structure is and what control you have there. I don't, so I'm not very competent in that subject quite yet. I will get there, but I'm not yet competent, and I don't like to come on air talking about something that I think I know, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I think it deserves being talked about, though, and
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you, Steve, 100%. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so maybe check out Heather Cox Richardson, which is a little bit more of a historian.
Right, I love her.
Yeah, go from there. But all the people I know that voted for Trump, mainly. In my opinion, my family is more to because they want the white power back, I guess, even though they're mostly good people. But once they dive into their Social Security and, we lose all our money, it's going to be a tough United States. And right now it's already tough if you're an immigrant, people are hiding and stuff. But only one other thing I wanted to say. I wanted to turn it onto gratitude. Every time I listen to your show and every time Moses calls in, she just has words that sing like through my ears to my soul, and I'm just grateful that she calls in.
I am too. I am grateful. Let me tell you, put it bluntly, I'm grateful for all of your calls because, like I said, the difference between our kind of opinion, news, etc., is that you're a part of it and you actually form it as well. It's like you're calling in about, why aren't you talking about this stuff that's going on at the Treasury right now? Well, I should be talking about what's going on in the Treasury, Steve. I'm just not prepared to do it yet, but I'll be prepared to do that. And I'm glad that you brought that up. All right.
Thanks, Egberto. Have a great one.
You have a wonderful day, sir. All right, let's go to Derek. Brother Derek, come on in.
Hey, good morning, Egberto and everybody. Egberto, when I was growing up, I used to hear this song by Bob Dylan that says, "How does it feel?" I mean, how does it feel to realize that you have prostituted your vote for money to Donald John Trump? How does it feel to realize that by him trying to set up tariffs between Canada and Mexico, when you got elderly Americans who board buses to go across to Mexico to buy drugs and get medical attention, same way with Canada to go buy drugs and medical attention. Dumb devils following behind an unwise Satan. That's what I mean. Thank you, Egberto.
Thank you, my brother. You have a wonderful rest of your day, Derek. Derek, when Derek speaks about the traveling that the older folks, people who go to Mexico to get drugs, who goes to Canada, it's amazing. My wife just had to start a drug called Jardiance. And that drug, the price of that drug, I think if I recall what she showed me was over $500 a month for something that costs pennies to make, Derek, pennies to make. And Donald Trump comes into office. MAGA brought him into office. A lot of folks that are MAGA, because again, in red states, sicker states, states that have all kinds of problems, they're going to be dependent on this. He is cutting a lot of what Biden did to lower the price of drugs. But that's who they elected. Now, I don't know, Derek, if you heard what Steve said. There is a whole lot of folks voting for him because they think he's going to maintain our identity as the leading identity in the country. That is a trick that has always been used. That's the reason I always say, always use. That's why I always bring to the forefront, when we unite, it's a stereotype. When we unite the ghettos, the barrios, and Appalachia, we win. And that is what we should be working on, folks. We have to work together, because if you think they like you because of how you look, if you think you have, if you think your quote unquote privilege is going to get you over the hump, remember, racism, sexism, and all the isms are nothing but the tool of the wealthy class. If you think you have more in common with Trump, let me tell you something. I have more in common with you than I have with Oprah. And you know why I use that example? You have to follow the money. Anything, Derek, before I move on?
No, I love it, brother. You own it. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. You have a wonderful rest of your day. All right, folks, going back to what we're talking about, that which is, thank you, Derek. Very important point. Sanders also noted how ABC agreed to pay last year $15 million settlement that included a letter of regret after veteran anchor and political commentator George Stephanopoulos said Trump had been found liable for rape of writer E. Jean Carroll. Why would you give them $15 million and send them a letter of regrets? Where are the thousands of letters of regrets that Donald Trump owes Americans for the serial lies that he tells over and over again? Where is the letter of regret for getting 400,000 Americans killed because of his lying about COVID? Where are the letters of regret for all that he did during the riots in Virginia, where he encouraged white supremacists with his actions? Where are those letters of regret? Come on in, Bruce.
Good morning, Egberto, and you're right.
Good morning, my brother. Thank you, sir.
I'm going to bring something up. Trump's economic policies are hurting the middle class and the poor. And right now, credit card debt is at a record high.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to force record number of bankruptcies. And these people, these creditors, most of them pro-Trump, will get nothing if someone files bankruptcy. So they're going to hurt themselves. The other thing I want to say, if Trump was Pinocchio, his nose would hit the moon and back.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I want to mention something. I want to add something to what Bruce just had to say, okay? Because I partially agree with the sentiment, but like I constantly say, the plutocrats always have a way out. And let me explain that. If you right now, interest rates for the banks to borrow from the Treasury or from the, it's very cheap. It's not expensive at all. But if you take a look at your credit card interest rates, if you're lucky, you got 12%. But most people are paying between 18, 19, 20, 22%, 23%. If you have bad credit, even up to 30% in fees. So what that means is and those people who don't pay their credit cards off every month, that means they're giving away a whole lot of money to bankers, and that is pure profit. And under what Bruce just said, a lot of people eventually just throw their hands up and they don't pay. And actually, that's the reason a lot of these banks say, we have to have the high interest rates because of default rates. But here's the part that they don't tell you about. When you have a customer that defaults on a loan or a credit card debt or whatever, the company gets its money back because they write off all this bad debt and they pay less in taxes for the bad debt. So whether you pay off the loan to the company or they keep charging high interest rates, they are extraordinarily profitable because the system is biased towards them. But yet, for blue states that have high sales tax rates, etc., Republicans remove their ability to write that off as a regular person. But the business folks can write all these bad debts off and not worry about whether people pay their bills or not, if they maintain a certain balance of those who pay and those who default. The system is rigged. That's why I wrote the book, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. When I talk about a system being rigged, folks, that's what I mean. It is rigged, and it is time for us. Again, but to know it's rigged, you have to have people that are pointing this out with examples, not only with examples, but with honesty, with truth, which is what we give you here at Politics Done Right. But we also have to exist. We can't have an ABC or who apologizes to Donald Trump after Donald Trump is a serial liar. We can't have an LA Times where Patrick Soon decides that he's not going to allow negative stories of Donald Trump to be written. We have to have honesty. That's why folks like Acosta left CNN and started his own independent media. That's Don Lemon, his own independent media. And of course, Politics Done Right, our own independent media. Come on in, Brian. And by the way, folks, the number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Brian, you're on.
Yeah, this actually goes out to Howard. Howard, the United States removed its military from Vietnam in 1973. Saigon fell to the North Vietnamese communist regime in 1975. I clearly remember the U.S. sailors pushing helicopters over the side of the aircraft carrier to make way for the civilians.
Oh,
Okay?
so you do some homework after all, don't you?
No, I knew that. You cut me off before I could tell you.
Okay.
There is no difference. Okay.
What do you mean? There's no difference in what, Brian? No difference in what?
There's no comparison. I clearly remember the Afghan civilians following and chasing the Globemaster when the United States left. Okay? There is no comparison. All right?
Okay.
There is no comparison.
All right. You stated there is no difference. Okay. What?
$86 billion was left. How long did it take for the Afghan government to fall?
I don't know. You tell me.
Hours?
You have all the answers, Brian.
It's about 36 hours.
Okay.
Okay? That was a complete disaster. And no one held the President of the United States responsible for that.
And how were they going to hold him responsible for it? What was he supposed to do? Tell me, Brian, what was he supposed to do?
He was supposed to stay there and guard the airport. His forces, not mine, his forces should have guarded the airport and a justified evacuation.
Actually, let me tell you something. You must not understand war. I don't know if you served or not, but it is silly.
Yes, I did.
It is. Well, sir, my brother. The problem is this. Okay, anytime you are getting out of a zone, I am sorry. That these things just happen. There's no easy, good way to get out of the zone. Let me tell you what. You know what's interesting, Howard? Here is how America would like, and I respect Biden for not doing this. A lot of wars that are fought under the Powell Doctrine, which means you go in with massive force, and to save every single American, you're willing to gun down 100,000 people if you're going to save every American. Let me tell you, from somebody who lived American power used incorrectly under Manuel Antonio Noriega, which was the wrong way to do it and the wrong way to create goodwill around the world. To get one man, we came in and bombed the holy you-know-what out. This was Bush number 2. Bush number 1, who did it? Bombed the holy hell out of a place just to get one man, and to protect your soldiers, you annihilated cities that was around the Cuartel. That is evil. So what you ask, believe it or not, whether you know it or not, what you really are asking that should have been done is to annihilate everything around to get yourself out of there when you didn't belong there in the first place. So, Brian, I completely discount what you're saying because it's barren of any form of morality whatsoever. And Howard is absolutely right. Thank you very much for calling in one more time, my brother. But we got to move on. All right, folks, going to the report, going back to the story as far as the news is concerned. As far as news media is concerned, we have to, as Bernie Sanders points out quite often, we can't allow a fallacy to exist. These news media companies are starting to succumb to Donald Trump, and they're doing this to hold and get favor over the next 4 years. They're doing this out of fear that somehow the media will be cut. The media will be put into a position where it cannot do its job, and to put it bluntly, where it can't make money. And they have to stop that. But it doesn't matter. The independent media is really growing, and with your help, the people who are listening to us as we put out this stuff, with your help, believe it or not, you fund the misinformation that misinforms you. We'd love for you to fund the information that actually informs. Let's go with Brother Augie. Come on in, Augie.
Yeah, it looks like Brian doesn't know anything about the military. It was Trump that negotiated our withdrawal.
Yeah.
He called himself the great negotiator, but the United States got nothing. The Taliban got everything they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Trump withdrew the forces that we needed in Afghanistan to protect them when the date of withdrawal. Trump is the one that told them when we're going to withdraw, that date. but it wasn't his administration. It was the next administration. Trump is the one that picked that date, and he drew down the forces. So there weren't enough forces to protect the ones that were still left. And he's also the one that told American forces to withdraw from Syria and where the Russians were at. And the Russians made a video when they took over the American bases, and they had a video of them drinking the Coca-Cola that Americans left behind because Trump told them to get out in a real hurry. They couldn't take everything. It had to be a real sudden withdrawal. So they left a lot of stuff behind because of Trump. So, and that's what happened in Vietnam too. We lost a whole lot of stuff under Nixon. His sudden withdrawal, and so
War.
in Afghanistan.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Afghan military didn't know they were going to withdraw that quick and take and leave. So the Afghan military just gave up.
Also we should also remember that Donald Trump actually thought about bringing the Taliban to Camp David. I mean, when we think about the things that that this president has done, it makes you wonder how we can survive another 4 years. We will survive another 4 years because we will be, or many will be the resistance, but we will survive it. Augie, I got to run to Betty. Anything else real quick?
Well, next time Brian always starts with a question. Why don't you ask him what his answer is first?
I like that. Actually, you know what? I think we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll ask for the question and the answer. Thank you, Augie. You have a wonderful rest of your day, my brother. Let's go to Betty.
I'll just be short on the Vietnam War about getting out of there. We was getting out of there with our lives. The helicopter drivers that was there trying to pick up people and save them. They were dragged, they were hung, they were stripped, they were tortured, and all kind of other stuff there, what we did. And he's talking about money. God. Brian's key, his church key does not fit.
Thank you, sister. You have a wonderful.
He's preaching, he's fussing, and he's crying. You big ninny, Brian. Love y'all.
Love you, girl. Have a good day, my sister. All right. This story, I wasn't gonna. It wasn't a plan, but I read it and it just broke my heart. The title of it is NPR put it out. I guess it was yesterday. Actually, it's today, and it's titled "Pastor Pushed Out After Parishioners Complain About Focus on Racial Justice." And all I could think about, I grew up in the church, and I'm now a humanist, but I grew up in the church, and everything was about what would Jesus do. And this was a great pastor of a little church in Myers Park Baptist Church in North Carolina. I just want to read the first few things in this story, and it says as follows. The Sunday after Donald Trump won a second term, Pastor Ben Boswell took to the pulpit at Myers Park Baptist, a liberal church in Charlotte, and delivered the sort of blunt, provocative sermon for which he is well known. Boswell likened the moment to what he called the gathering dark of Hitler's rule. He added that Trump's election would lead to the crucifixion of immigrant families as well as transgender and non-binary people. But our faith also teaches us that every crucifixion needs a witness, Boswell said. The fight is not over. It's just the beginning. The congregation, including the board of deacons, the church's governing body, gave Boswell a standing ovation. Several weeks later, the board met on Zoom. They voted 17-3 to ask Boswell to step down. NPR obtained the audio. It provides a rare window into the debate within an organization when the tone of its social or political messaging clashes with its business model. Mercy McClellan, then head of the board, said the first reason Boswell needed to go was plunge in attendance. Myers Park had gone from average weekly attendance of about 350 to arrive in when he arrived in 2016. It's now about 150. Of course, all churches are suffering decline because they've noticed, again, I'm not going to go into all the rationale behind it, but to summarize the rest of the article, a lot of the older folks in the congregation felt that they felt, what is the word that I want to say? They didn't like the idea of this pastor pointing out some inconvenient truths. And as liberal as the church was, people's liberalism many a times only go so far instead of going as far as it should. Those in church, instead of being Jesus-like, they stop up to a point where they get uncomfortable. Look, I was uncomfortable when I had to change my ways for a whole lot of things, but I was wrong. I want to ask everybody out there, please become uncomfortable for doing what is right and educate ourselves, educate yourselves for doing what's right. I'm going to post the story so that all can see in the newsletter. It wasn't there originally, but I'll add it to the newsletter because it's a touching story and one I think everybody who calls themselves a Christian should read. Anyway, let me throw it to the studio.
Alrighty. Well, Brian, I'm actually glad that you call in every morning. It's always interesting to hear what you've got to say. Whether I agree with you or whether I disagree with you, it is certainly your right to say so. And to keep calling in and keep it up. Okay, Jack has something. He's right here. He's ready to go.
All right. Rosa Parks, happy birthday. Rest in peace, Rosa.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Wow. Thank you for pointing that out, my brother. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. Love you all. Thank you for all the callers. Thank you for all the listeners. Don't forget, if you have anything that you disagree with that I say and you want to hit me up, you don't want to hit me up on air, you can always hit me up at info, or rather at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. Don't forget, the rest of the program is at the newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of